Alright, this is my week 5 assignment. So, rehabilitation and reentry efforts are super important for inmates as they prepare to come back into modern society, as most will eventually be released from prison. Incarcerated individuals undergo certain assessments and identify specific needs which should guide rehabilitation programs such as education, job trainings, and psychological support. This support continues most of the time after release, and it helps address barriers such as housing, employment, and social reintegration, which is something that many ex-prisoners struggle with. Evidence-based practices are super crucial for effective rehabilitation, and it reduces recidivism and mitigating the tangible and intangible costs of crime and on communities. So, offender rehabilitation refers to the process of helping people who have committed crimes, and it addresses the underlying issues that contributed to their criminal behavior, such as whether it be substance abuse, mental health problems, lack of education, or poor social skills. This helps the process involve various programs and therapies aimed at changing their behavior, and it helps try to provide the necessary tools that they need for offenders to lead law-abiding lives. And then reentry, on the other hand, focuses on assisting offenders as they transition from prison back into society after their release. It kind of involves preparing them for the challenges they will face, like finding stable housing, employment, and social connections, like what I just mentioned on the slide previous. So these reentry programs often can include continued support services such as counseling, substance abuse treatment, and educational programs to help ensure the individual's successful reintegration into the community and reduce the risk of reoffending again. So this was a study that I found through the Connecticut government website. It looks at the challenges that people face when re-entering the community. Not Connecticut. This is just a general one. I wish it had the numbers, the percentage on it, but it doesn't for some reason. So, this looks at individuals and their challenges that they face when coming back into the community after being released from county jails. So people returning to society from jail often struggle to access community resources and common barriers, such as housing, obtaining benefits, healthcare, medications, identification, transportation, mental health care, substance abuse treatment, and employment. And more, obviously. Although there has been growth in programs and services for former offenders, this research will highlight these barriers and explain who exactly is affected and why it's so significant still. And then this kind of shows that they need better access to healthcare, substance abuse treatment, housing, and employment. and exploring whether removing or easing these barriers can reduce recidivism. So, looking at the significance of offender rehabilitation and reentry to offenders specifically, rehabilitation helps offenders address the roots of their criminal behavior, and so whether that be substance abuse, mental health issues, or lack of education that they might have, it helps them crack down specifically on what they need to focus on fixing. Sorry that just switched. This can help them successfully reintegrate into society, because they also provide essential support such as job, training, housing assistance, and mental health care. And then successful rehabilitation and reentry reduce the likelihood of recidivism, allowing offenders to lead productive, law-abiding lives and maintain healthier relationships with their families and communities. So looking at this when it pertains to our communities, effective rehabilitation and reentry programs lead to safer communities by reducing repeated offenses and the associated risks of crime. And in addition, when offenders successfully reintegrate, they contribute positively to the community by becoming employed, they pay taxes, and they also can support their families. Reducing recidivism lowers the economic burden of on the community, such as the costs related to law enforcement, the court system, and incarceration. In Connecticut, which is where I'm from, there are many restaurants in town that specifically hire people that had recently gotten out of jail to help them get back on their feet, and they make really, really good food. So I would say that that's also one way they support the community. And then looking at this and pertaining to the criminal justice system, it focuses on rehabilitation and reentry, which does help the criminal justice system operate more efficiently by reducing overcrowding in prisons and associated costs. Evidence-based relationship rehabilitation programs improve long-term outcome for offenders. This can lead to fewer individuals cycling through the system and helping break the cycle of crime, so they don't just keep repeating offenses over and over again. And then also, by focusing on rehabilitation, the justice system aligns with principles of restorative justice, aiming to rehabilitate offenders rather than solely punish them. And this can lead to a fair outcome for them. So, when we look at recidivism in Connecticut, the rate stands at approximately 49%. So that means almost half, of individuals released from incarceration are rearrested within 3 years, which I thought was crazy. That does not seem like a good job to me. But anyway, this high rate leads to significant tangible costs for both the criminal justice system and communities. Economically, when we're looking through that lens, crime imposes a substantial burden with property losses in Connecticut, and it's estimated between $110 million and $240 million. Victim costs are ranging from $368 to $950 million. The criminal justice system itself also faces considerable expenses, such as law enforcement, judicial proceedings, and corrections, with nationwide estimates indicating that the cost per crime can range from $500 to $2,300, which does translate into millions of dollars, it being in expensive Connecticut. And then beyond financial costs, crime also results in significant intangible costs. Victims often suffer emotional and psychological harm. So this can include maybe trauma, anxiety, and a very diminished quality of life, which are difficult to quantify by undeniably, but they are impactful. Additionally, communities experience a loss of trust and safety, which does, although it's not money, but it does pay the price. And then as the recidivism rates can lead to an increased fear and diminished social coercion. And then addressing recidivism through effective rehabilitation and reentry programs is critical to reducing both the tangible and intangible costs of crime. And then ultimately it will create a safer, healthier, and more resilient community. So this is just a graph I found on Connecticut, its government portal, for male inmates only. I really wish that I had the opportunity to look at female inmates, but I couldn't find one specifically for them. But over the 3 years following release, a total of 1,109 fewer prisoners who were released in 2014 picked up a new arrest than did prisoners who were released in 2011. And similarly, 718 fewer prisoners who were released in 2014 returned to prison over the next 3 years, and compared to those released in 2011. Then by January 2019, the state's prison population is expected to fall to 12,901, and that dropping below 13,000 for the first time since September 1993. I wonder if that had to do with COVID. I'm assuming. I don't think we should be too surprised by that. But this all-time high inmate population was February 1st in 2008, when it reached 19,893, which is insane. So this was the program I looked into, which was the Offender Reentry Services Unit, which is in Connecticut. It's under the Department of Corrections Program and Treatment Division. It is dedicated to assisting incarcerated individuals in their transition back into society. And then the primary goals of ORSU is to facilitate successful reintegration by providing comprehensive support and resources. So the first key component of this program is individualized reentry planning. So each offender receives a personalized reentry plan developed in collaboration with reentry counselors. And this plan addresses specific needs and outlines steps for a successful transition for them. Next, we have educational and vocational training. So the program offers access to educational courses and vocational training to enhance skills and improve employment upon release to help them line up a job. And then there's substance abuse treatment, which is something I talked about a lot already. But for those with substance use disorders, it does provide treatment programs aimed at achieving and maintaining sobriety. And then we also have mental health services involved in the ORSU program. This can include counseling to address psychological issues that may affect reintegration. Employment assistance also they assist offenders in securing employment by providing jobs and training and connecting them with potential employers. And then lastly, they do offer housing support, and this shows them guidance and resources to help them find stable housing upon release. And then by focusing on these areas, the ORSU aims to reduce recidivism rates and promote public safety by preparing offenders for a successful return to their communities. I didn't know about this program, so it was really interesting taking a look into it, about how much they do truly care about their reintegration back into society. But there's, I'm sorry, I never clicked on the next slide, but this is just a compiled list that I made of the pros of it. Oh no, never mind. Scratch that. So here are some pros of it. That was just explaining what it took. I apologize about that, but anyway, the ORSU in Connecticut has several benefits that I just mentioned, and then it focuses on providing personalized reentry plans, and the program provides a holistic approach because it offers so many different outlets of substance abuse training, mental health. They can offer all of that, and it's not just dilated into one factor. So they do offer comprehensive support. It's very cost saving, actually, which took me by surprise. And then ORSU contributes to lowering the costs associated with incarceration and criminal justice proceedings. Effective reentry programs reduce the need to repeat arrests and trial and imprisonment, which not only savings for the state, but it saves so much time. It improves public safety, which is an obvious. If they get them out back into society as good people, then communities feel safer, and they're also not committing crime again. There's also the positive economic impact, which I just spoke about, and how it's cost saving. And then that's also better mental health and stability. It addresses so many mental health issues and helps contribute that may have been contributing to their criminal behavior. It offers so much counseling and treatment programs that improve emotional well-being and stability. But with every pro, there are some cons. So there are limited resources, unfortunately. The program may face funding or resource constraints, and it may limit its capacity to serve all of eligible offenders. It can't apply the time to everyone, and support all of those with complex needs. Not all offenders may have equal access to this program, like what I just mentioned. They also, especially those incarcerated in more remote or less resourced facilities, leading to disparities in income and outcomes. There is a lot of dependency on external support. So this program, for it to be successful, it needs to rely on housing, employment, and healthcare, which is not something we can always count on because they may not be willing to support ex-offenders. There also can be a short-term focus sometimes, as the program's planning may primarily focus on the short-term transition from prison to the community instead of emphasizing a long-term and follow-up. Like, they should keep following up with them. And then the public attitudes towards ex-offenders and reentry can be very negative, and they may judge them, and they may make it harder for individuals to find employment or stable housing in completing the program. With the high demand and the overcrowding in prisons, it may reduce the quality of each of this or the ability to even provide support. So here are some solutions to improving offender reentry services. ORSU can try increasing funding and resources. This can ensure better training for staff and provide additional resources such as mental health services, educational opportunities, and vocational training. They also can enhance community partnerships. So community-based organizations can ensure adequate housing, employment, and healthcare for released offenders. They also can expand access across facilities. So they can try to ensure that all offenders, regardless of their location or where they are in the facility or what facility they're even in, has an equal access to reentry services by offering virtual or remote support, even if they have to do that. There should be long-term and follow-up support, which is something I already stated. But make sure they're checking in and providing ongoing mentorship instead of just until they're out of prison. And then we should reduce stigma through public awareness. So launching public education campaigns to reduce the stigma towards people in prison will help people not be so afraid of those who had just got out of jail. We're going to also use data for continuous improvement, so we can check to see what does work, what doesn't work, and where we can make improvements. And this can help us practice, adapt our services to ensure that program remains effective. And lastly, we can improve job placement programs. So partner with more employers that are willing to hire ex-offenders. Many people are in the restaurant industry, so partner with more restaurants and things like that. It also can provide job readiness programs that can increase employment opportunities upon release. So by addressing all of these, ORSU can become more effective in reducing recidivism, supporting offenders, and successfully reintegrating into society. Here are my citations.